Hey, hello, my name's Kevin, and what I'm doing is the relationship between school shootings and violent video games. So, here's the summary. Does violent video games have any effect towards school shooting? And answer is maybe. The theory behind this: violent video game causes aggressive behavior, and it is proven true. I've read like several articles, and they always say that violent video games like shows aggressive behaviors and stuff like that, and yeah. So video game also causes people to be antisocial along with poor mental and physical health. So people who play video games, I'm talking about addicts, people who play more than 8 hours a day. Yeah. And here is some evidence that I found that relate to the violent video games causing people to having these mental or antisocial disorder. So in one of their articles, there's a quote saying, "Higher stakes and conventional behavior serve as a protective factor against PvP. Lacking a high school diploma was identified as a risk factor for PvP, as was unemployment, retirement, and disability, likely due to the availability time for gaming within these populations." So basically what they're just trying to say is that usually gamers who play a lot tend to discard their future in order to make more time for video games. And another quote that I found, further problem gamers had elevated scores of measures of anxiety and depression and lower scores on satisfaction with life. In other words, our data show a clear and consistent pattern in which video game problems are associated with poorer health. Just explains that like people who play video games a lot aren't that satisfied with life itself. They just don't have that social life. They're secluded from everybody, and yeah. And another quote: problematic use of video game is especially prevalent among young males and is associated with poor self-reported physical and mental health. Just ties in that people who play video games will tend to have poor health and poor mental mind. That's if they're an addict. Again, playing more than 8 hours a day. Some school shootings. It is a bit of a problem. So I did some research, and usually most of the people who do these school shootings tend to have like one of those mental disorder or something antisocial, and what I define like mentally unstable is this quote here by Hillshaffer. So he says, most people who commit mass murder have at least one major mental disorder. Specifically, some form of delusion and symptoms gets worse over time. This mental decline has noticeable effect on the person's life, and peers and other who interact with that person know something isn't right. So basically, you will instantly see that something is not like right, like he's not normal, and he suddenly went to a change, or she suddenly went to a change. So there's this picture. He participated in the Sandy Hook's killing, I think last year in 2012. So he killed like 20 elementary students and 6 adults, and school shooting is a big problem. So some evidence to support that this guy wasn't like like all that right mind. So the report also detailed the items found in Lanza bedrooms, including news articles about other school shootings, video games including Left 4 Dead and Call of Duty, and photographs of a person covered in blood. The report was unable to establish a conclusive motive, but said what we do know is that the shooter had significant mental health issues that did affect his ability to live a normal life and interact with others. Lanza would not allow anyone to enter his bedroom, refused to sleep in hotels, reacted badly to noises, disliked Christmas and birthdays, and liked to play violent video games called liked to play video game called Dance Dance Revolution, in addition to more violent fare. To me, as a gamer, the third quote is a bit weird, just because that Dance Dance Revolution is a positive video game. So I did more research on this, that positive video games tend to have positive effect towards the individual, and violent video games tend to have a very bad effect, very more aggressive personality towards the individual. And I think during this research I've read more about like the video game being rated M causes more aggression towards the individual compared to rated T and rated E games. In fact, rated E games tend to have more positive effect on children, stimulating their mind. Some positive games I could say would be like some learning video games to help the developmental mind of the children, like in elementary school or in preschool. E-rated games like Mario Kart or I can't think of anything else, but like violent games would be Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, something violent, something shooting, something that would not be considered normal that you can do in real life. And I thought this quote was a bit weird because he played Dance Dance Revolution, and he already had this mental disorder, even though he played a lot of Call of Duty and Left 4 Dead, and he had it was one of those like cross. I don't know how to explain this, but as a gamer, it's just very weird. People who actually play Dance Dance Revolution would usually be very positive, and yeah. So, all right. So some of the connections. School shooting shows signs that the shooter is mentally unstable and unsociable. Again, if you look at the Yahoo, if you look at some of the news, like Yahoo News or some other articles, they tend to show some instability in their social life or any other problems. The shooter participates in violent video games. Even though this idea might be a stretch, video games could have an effect towards the school shootings. And what I'm trying to say is that even though that the school shooters tend to have like one of these antisocial and unstable life, video games does also cause that as well, and it does causes mental instability, antisocialness, and those are proven true. And what I'm trying to do is connect them to each other. So here's some pictures from South Park. I thought this would be extremely funny. Some kids right here playing WoW. This is where they had like a perfect social life, perfect everything, and then when they started playing, their health just went so poorly. They're just secluded from life. Like South Park captured this fairly well. It was just unbelievable. I started laughing, so I kind of like that. And continue on the conclusion. So as I said again, the conclusion, the connection may not be obvious and a bit of a stretch, but you can see the connection towards it. So some of the errors was that lack of evidence because they cannot interrogate the shooter because he or she is dead. There simply is no quality. So another quote from Ferguson that I did, could not make this connection. So there is simply no quality evidence for predictive value of violent video game exposure as a risk factor for school shooting. And again, aside from individuals who claim in advance that they are going to commit a school shooting, it is argued here that not enough data exists to suggest a consistent profile of potential school shooters exists that would avoid significant risk of false positive. So that just basically means that you need more school shootings to actually make this connection that people play video games, they have some mental disorder. But yeah, and even though there aren't that many, but it's still a lot, but like I think like 7 or so, it still cannot make that kind of connection. So the idea is still there, but yeah, some errors continue. And this quote ties in everything about the connection of what I'm talking about. So it is possible that playing violent video games only has a negative effect on children during stress, during specific developmental periods, or on children who have other significant risk factors for dangerous and lethal behaviors. Although many youth who engage in violent school events were video game players, most also had maladaptive personality traits and characteristics. With over 90% of children exposed to video games of some kind, it is likely that any single school shooter has played video games. However, since most individuals exposed to violent video games do not display assaultive or lethal violence in the real world, other factors are probably have causative effects. These may include a stressful, disruptive, and/or abusive family life, poverty, negative peer group influence, and bullying. Scientific evidence does not always translate into effective public policy, but it is an important consideration. So basically, all this quote just means that even though science can't actually make this connection, there's also like other ways that you can look through the lens. And yeah, and game over. And here's my work cites. I did about 13 articles, I believe. Yeah, I did a lot of research. And thank you.